I've been looking into this R2.8 engine for the Cummins to go into a Defender. It's starting to get more questions than answers, really. I measured up the 200 TDI engine bay, and it will go in, sort of this Defender, yeah, it'll go in pretty easy, that's not a problem. But I've just wrote out here a list of pros and cons. A lot of people jump into projects and they don't actually think about it all the way through. So I make a list and I put one side and put the other side, and good and bad things. So I'm going to compare the 2.8 to a 300 TDI cost-wise, as just approximately what it's going to be, and then I'll talk about issues that we're going to have. So first of all, the engine itself is, I'll do this in US dollars because that's all I'm getting my prices from the US for these things. So it's $9,000 for a brand new engine for the 2.8. Now for a 300 TDI, I haven't seen much at all under £500, and then most of all, I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. I'd strip them down and reseal them, new bearings and new timing belts and everything. I would never ever put a 300 TDI in on the floor. I've been burnt by that so many times, I'll never do it again. So £500, $670 plus shipping, and that's the killer for us. In the UK you won't have a problem, but then again it'll be reversed, so you're going to have to spend $9,000 plus shipping if you want one of these 2.8 Cummins. Now where are they made? Well, the 300 TDI could be made anywhere. It could be made in UK or it could be made in Brazil. It doesn't really matter all that much, but it seems to me that these 2.8s are Chinese, hence the price. Chinese materials, eh? I'm not really sure. Because there is an earlier version of this 2.3 that they built in Southeast Asia and places like this, for that market, should I say, and that didn't have a very good reputation. I'll probably add a bit on down below in this video once I get it sorted out, so bear with me. Transmission. It doesn't come with a transmission, and this is where we get into a big problem. Because the scope is quite wide, we could put an automatic or a manual on it. But we need adapters, bell housing adapters, if we're going to do a manual, and adapters even if we're going to do an automatic, and this is where we get into a whole big can of worms. The beauty about the 300 TDI is it's mated to the R380, bell housing, comes all complete, bang it together, put it in your car, walk away, well, drive away really. So this is now we're getting into something, this is now we're getting to the bones of it. I've seen this morning an R380 long gearbox like we have on the 300 TDI that's been mated to the back of a 2.8. However, the clutch cylinder, the slave cylinder, comes out so tight to the catalyzer, it doesn't look good. I mean, rubber fluid next to a catalytic converter. Now, it's a particulate catalyzer that does all sorts of bits and pieces. Can you take it off? I don't know. Is it detrimental to the motor if you take it off? I don't know. These things I need to find out, and I need a manual to work this out. So, you can get where we're going now. In America, there's a company producing stubby bell housings for Defenders. I don't want a stubby bell housing. I think, well, what the hell do I want them for? But you see, in America, having to import vehicles that's over 25 years old, they've only sort of just caught up with the 200 TDIs. Well, of course, they've got the short bell housing on the LT77 and LT77Ss, So what they're doing is they're just sort of using that. But last night I did a bit more research into this, and I found out there's method in the madness, because on the left-hand drive, this is for us, on the left-hand drive, the oil cooler on the engine will foul the steering box. So I thought to myself, well, why not take the oil cooler off? And apparently somebody said it's cast into the engine. Well, I didn't really believe that, but I think it's cast. It's integral with the front timing cover. So we're going to get expensive if we do bring it forward. I did see one chap who was putting one into a disco, and he did something really. I think he did something really funky with the steering box, or he did something really funky with a oil cooler. I don't know. The oil cooler looks like one of these flat multi-plate coolers, and it's a big square box on the front corner. Bad idea. I would have just put pipes on and put an intercooler on if it was mine, but I haven't seen one. And again, money. It's getting expensive all the time. So this is a problem. So what these guys are doing, they're buying from Ashcroft's these stubby R380 gearboxes outright, and then buying an adapter plate, an adapter bell housing to go on so it all bolts together. Great. And the nice thing about it was the cylinder came in from the back of the bell housing and not the front, like on the 200 TDI. So that's a good idea, but a gearbox outright is going to cost you about $1,200–1,300 US. Ashcroft's selling them for £1,000 outright. That's a bit dear. Plus you've got to get it here. R380 on the other hand, well, you'll pay about $400 for one, and probably it'll need rebuilding, maybe $1,000 into it to rebuild it and refurbish it. But again, it'll all bolt together. So this is getting to be a bit of a mire. It's getting to be a bit of a problem. This is why you should always work things out with a piece of paper first. The clutch, they're going to be both about the same, about $125 US, maybe 150, depending on the quality. Now, again, this is getting into a problem I've been chatting with Jeremy this morning about, is that we've worked out what the bolt pattern size is for the 2.8, and it seems to be the biggest clutch you can put in there is a 10.5, which works in our favour because we can put the friction plate off a Rover V8, a heavy duty friction plate in, and a North American cover, so we could make that work, because on European cars they have about six or eight bolts go around the flywheel, the clutch cover, but on North American cars they like put 3 there, 3 there, 3 there, and 3 there, like in a crucifix type form. So bolting a V8 clutch cover could prove a little difficult. Now again, then it brings us to a problem of release mechanism. I really don't know how we're going to do that either. Radiator, no idea. You're going to have to either custom make one or find one. You've got to get one with the hoses that come out at the right size and the right angle. Conversions that have hoses crisscrossing look awful, and they are awful, because you can guarantee at some point the hose will need replacing, and some people do steel pipes and stuff like that. It just looks tacky. Why not have the hose come out at the right side? So we've got to do some research into that. 300 TDI ones, you can get a used radiator, or you can get a new radiator, and they're relatively cheap now, and of course they've got the intercooler built into the side, which is a big bonus, and of course it all bolts together. Intercooler, no idea how much it's going to be for the 2.8. Again, don't know until we get it here, so to see how it's going to fit. Like I say, 300 TDI, it's usually integral with the radiator assembly. Engine mounts. Generally speaking, on the 300 TDI, they're already bolted onto the engine. The 2.8 doesn't come with any mountings. I saw a price of 125 American dollars for a pair. They look pretty easy to make, really. They didn't look like rocket science. It wasn't really very fancy. In fact, I'd be tempted to use 300 TDI mountings adapted onto the 2.8. What else? You get chassis mounts. You're going to have to make your own. Well, you're going to have to make your own even if you put a 300 TDI in. Auto box options. Now this is an interesting one. The torque and power out of this little Cummins engine looks to be okay for an automatic. There is an automatic option for a 300 TDI. They were not very good, believe me. They weren't very. They were okay. They worked, but they weren't very good. Believe me, I've never had much luck with them. But again, it's bolt together. The problem is with the 300 TDI, you needed torque converters and things like that matching to the gearbox. Try and find those now. It's getting, you're getting onto 20-year-old stuff. And then if you haven't got that, you've got to go to Ashcroft's and get a rebuilt one. I'm getting adding up. The Autobox has got a lot of criteria into how it's going to work. I did see one site that was mentioning that they were making an Autobox kit for the Rover V8s, for the Disco 2s and Disco 1s. But although I think they've worked out that the bolt pattern is okay and everything's going to work out okay, I'm not sure if they've worked out if there's a reluctor ring in the back of they're keeping the reluctor ring in the flex plate for the engine sensor. Now, let's get this right, because the problem is with the 2.8, it's got its own crank sensor on the front to work out the timing and things like this. But on the Disco 2, the gearbox is electronically controlled. There's no kick-down cable on it. That's a problem. So it works off an electronic signal from the engine. Well, where's that going to come from? You can buy a standalone computer from Ashcroft's to work the automatic gearbox in the Disco 2, but that's £750. It's more money. I see it's adding up, it's adding up, it's adding up. Hoses and cables, controls, etc. The beauty about the 300 TDI is you can buy standard hoses, standard cables, standard brackets, standard everything, and you can even get them used. That's not a problem. 2.8, you've got to fabricate everything yourself. Hoses, everything. The 300 TDI air cleaner usually comes with the engine. It's fastened on the side of the engine usually. That's a good, and it's got the hoses, and you've got an attachment, if you can find all the right parts, because they're pretty much easy to get, to go through the wing, and you can put a snorkel on it. The 2.8 doesn't come with an air cleaner at all. It just comes with the pipe coming out, and you've got a mass airflow sensor in there, and that's it. And I've seen an awful lot of people put K&N filters on. Well, I don't like them because they make an awful lot of induction noise. It's noisy. The whole idea is to, be with these newer engines that's running quiet, to keep them quiet. So I would like to put a proper air cleaner in there with a filter that you can take out. Low maintenance K&N filters are worse than useless, in my opinion. So I just sort of did this paper just off the top of my head a few minutes ago, and I put another note on the bottom. Is ease of retrofit. How easy is it to put a 300 TDI into a Defender if you've got all the kit and the fittings than one of these 2.8s? Well, obviously we're in no man's. We don't know where we're going with the 2.8, but we know where we're going with the R38, the 300 TDI, because we can just pick up a book or we can go on the internet and ask somebody. Somebody's already done it thousands and thousands of times. Fuel economy is an interesting one. One of the reasons why we put diesel engines into cars is because we want good fuel economy. These do the 2.8 does 25, approximately 25 US miles per gallon. It's about 30 British miles per gallon, or approximately 10 litres per 100 kilometres, which isn't too bad, but it isn't fantastic. You know, it's not like 30 odd miles to the gallon. Well, I guess you can't have everything. You can't have power and economy. I guess with a bit of gearing you can work these things out, but it seems to be that these engines have got maximum power at only about 1600, 1800 RPM. It's not much. So your rev range to get to high power is very limiting, so you've got to take all the gearing into account, and that's what I'll be working on this afternoon. I think Mr. Jameson will be around this afternoon because I've had a shitty day. Now, he's always round. Field serviceable, very, very important. How field serviceable are these Cummins engines? They're fly-by-wire. They're, what do they call them now? Common rail injection systems. If you break down, how are you going to fix it? The thing is about the TDI is, it's old school injector pump. It's old school type of fitting. Now that doesn't mean to say that you can get away with murder. What it means is that if your injector's gone, or a break, or your injector pump goes, well, you can just bolt the new one on, or a second-hand one, and off you go. Even if it's inconvenient, you're stuck at the side of the road for a couple of days and somebody flies you one over or something, you can fix it. But what happens if the common rail system goes funky? What, you know, do you carry around a spare computer? Can you diagnose it? And even if you can diagnose it, can you fix it? Now, not only that, you know, field serviceable covers a whole range of bits and pieces. If the clutch goes, you see, if the clutch goes, for example, on a 300 TDI, well, it's not the end of the world. You just pull the engine out, put a clutch in and bang it back in again. That's how I do it. But if you've got some funky arrangement, and you sort of, I've seen a lot of guys who do conversions, and they make everything, they put the engine and gearbox together, and then they weld all the mountings in, and then they find out they can't get the bloody engine out if they need to work on it. You've got to think about these things all the time. You've got to be 2 or 3 steps ahead, and it all takes time, and time's money. Bonnet space. When I was doing my Isuzu, I knew it would go in, but I was trying to work out the crank sensor and the crank center line across the engine to work out the angle of the engine, because obviously if the engine's too high at the back, your transfer case is too low, it'll pivot on the mountings. You don't want that, and also you won't be able to get the bonnet shut. And that's the thing I had an issue with when they did the Isuzu. Unfortunately, some chaps in Australia were online at the same time as me, and I put a question out to one of the Land Rover clubs, and I asked them, what is, if I put a straight edge across the wings here, what would be the height to the top of the thermostat housing? And I got an answer within a few minutes, and I was made. After that, I was away, you know, I was good. But this is all unknown. Now, looking at it, it looks like it'll fit. It looks nice. Now, there are a lot of conversions people put in, and then they find out they can't shut the bloody bonnet. I did one once on a petrol engine, on a 2.5 petrol. I put a fancy carb on, and it was about this far off. I couldn't shut the bonnet. But by the time it got the air cleaner housing on and stuff like that, I couldn't shut the bonnet. Ease of service as well. Well, that goes down field service, ease of service. Parts availability. You see, you've got to judge where your territory is. If you're in Europe, you can probably get 300 TDI stuff all over the place. Where you're going to get 2.8 stuff. And likewise, when you're in North America, you probably pick Cummins stuff up pretty easy. So what I was saying earlier was there was two versions of this engine. It seems to be there was an older version of this, and it came in, I think it came in two sizes. I think it came in a 3.8 and a 2.8. Now, I was reading some horror stories about that this morning. That the build quality wasn't very good, and the longevity wasn't very good. In fact, Cummins were only given a 90-day warranty. That's how bad they were. However, in these engines, it's a 2-year warranty. So there's a little bit of confidence. Because you see, when you buy your old engine, 300 TDI engine, and now let me tell you this from UK, no matter where I bought engines from dealers, private, anything like that, once it's across the water, forget a warranty. Forget it. Nobody's, no, it was all right when it left. Oh, it was running great. So you're never going to get your money back. Or you're never going to get a refund on expensive repairs. And believe me, I've seen that happen so many times. So, I don't want to ramble on about that too much, but yeah, they were saying that the engines were getting water in them through the liners. I don't know. They were saying that I don't know, there was all sorts of little bits and pieces, not too much, but discouraging. So I've got to look into that. Are people who are telling me about these things or writing, is this the old model and they've corrected that? I don't know. You see, just before I go, I know it's been a bit of a ramble, but I hope I've given some information and some background on this. These engines are relatively new, so we haven't got any long-term results from them yet. Like, people, have we got a lot of people running up 200,000 miles on them, like they have with the R380s? The good thing about the R380 was it was a good slugger. It would keep going on and on and on, but progressively it would get worse and worse and worse. But people kept putting up with it and putting up with it, and you're dealing with a 20-year-old engine, but it could be fixed to bring it back up to life again. Now, I've just before I go, a 300 TDI 110 coming out the factory door was supposed to be 110 horsepower, or 111, round about that way. Now, I've been looking through some dynamometer results from people, and they're only getting about 80 horsepower out of them. Stock standard, no boost pins, no tunes or anything like that. And it's been pretty consistent because obviously an engine, when it's 20 years old, a few of the horses have left the paddock and gone. So we're now comparing an engine that might have lost 10, 15, even 20% of its power, but unnoticeable over the 20 years. So what are these 2.8s going to be like in a few years' time? So are we comparing apples with apples? That's what I'm trying to get at. So I'm going to do a bit more research onto that, and I'll come back with what I found and keep you posted. But this is just for now. So I'm not going to jump into anything straight away. I'm 90% there on getting a kit or getting an engine. It's just that the hidden costs could put that $9,000 engine up to about 15 to 20,000 quite easily. Now, could you recoup that money if you put it in the car to get it back? Not including your wage, not including your hours you've put into it. So think about things like that very, very carefully. I'm doing it as a business. I've got to make profit because I've got to put food on the table and keep the lights on. Some of you guys doing it for fun and things like that, well, it's not too bad, but you're still spending money. So we've got to spend it wisely, guys. All right, we'll talk to you later. Bye.